25th Hour Radio Show.
You're tuned in to the 25th Hour Radio Show. I'm your host, Rob Fairless. On behalf of my co-host, Randy Ashby, we would like to welcome you to today's program. Tonight on our show, we have author and editor and martial artist Gordon Richiusa. Gordon, how are you doing today?
Doing very well. Thanks, Rob.
Can you explain to our listeners just a little brief history about yourself?
Well, I've been many things over the years, but one of the things that I've been consistently is a writer.
Okay.
I have written... Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. You've written a few books.
I used to write mostly about other people, but in the last couple of years, I have decided to kind of step to the forefront and write things with my own name on them. I've written, of course, with a lot of pen names over the years, and I've been a writer for almost 40 years now. But
what's some of the novels that you've wrote?
My first novel came out a couple of years ago. It's called Shidoshi, The Four Ways of the Corpse. And it's a story that was told to me when I first met Frank Dukes, almost 30 years ago now.
Mm-hmm.
I was a writer for, I was a freelance writer, so I was writing for a lot of magazines, but I was really kind of a go-to person for Rainbow Publications, and they would actually call me up and say, we have a story we'd like you to do. But they also would publish a lot of the stories that I suggested to them, and I never ever wrote about myself. I always wrote about somebody else, and so I had an interest in a form of massage called Chuaka, and I just got on the phone one day and started calling around and asking anybody if they knew anything about Chuaka. Anyways, I found Frank Dukes, and our relationship, which I've talked about in the past, but our relationship started there when he told me this story, and I realized that this fantastic story he was telling me was true.
Mm-hmm.
and anyways, 30 years later, I decided to make the story into a fictional novel, and there are, of course, some similarities to some of the characters in the book, especially Frank and myself. I kind of in there in most of the characters, like most writers, but it's about the term Shidoshi and how a 300-year war of the Iga and Koga clans of ninja has kind of continued on into the modern day, and we took it from there. And I just fantasized at that point thereon. And the interesting part about Shidoshi for me, which, by the way, won a Book of the Year award.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Legends Hall of Fame. Cynthia Rothrock and Eric Kovaleski handed me that award. I was very happy to get that. But that book was, the preface of that book was written by a guy named Rico Rose. And he is known as the Panda on the streets.
Okay.
He's an undercover police officer working drugs, and he was, I call him the Mexican Jewish Sherlock Holmes. and really the interesting part about my first two novels, and that was my second novel, is that they are fiction based on real living people.
And that book would be the Panda Chronicles, I assume?
The Panda Chronicles, correct. That's the first one.
Now, you got a new, your newest novel is called The Five Principles of Everything. Can you explain to us what that book's about?
Well, that book is not fiction. That one I really stepped all the way out of character and wrote about myself, because I'm also a teacher. I'm a credentialed teacher. I teach, mostly writing, composition, script writing, things of that nature. And I have, of course, worked in other venues. I worked in the L.A. County jails for 20 years as a teacher. Worked with the inmates, gave them high school diplomas and GEDs. In fact, I broke all records as far as success was concerned. But
good job on that.
Thank you. So the Five Principles of Everything basically takes martial arts concepts and shows how they can be applied to anything. And I use it now as my textbook for my writing classes, in fact. And there are other people in other disciplines who are talking about using it for life skills programs and psychology classes and business classes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Because it's not just me telling my story, but I have, because of my past experience working as a journalism freelancer, and I do have international credentials, by the way. I'm a National Writers Union, but I also have International Federation of Journalism credentials.
You're the real deal.
Yeah, I'm actual. When people say, what do you write, I say words, and sometimes they end up on paper. And
that's the perfect way to put it.
Yeah, but so the 5 principles of everything is really my way of trying to show that what I've learned in martial arts has been more, as most martial artists realize, it's more than just punching and kicking. It's how to look at everything strategically, and what I call it is a conflict avoidance. Because, of course, the best martial arts technique, I have always said, is the one that you never have to use. And the only technique that works every single time is to avoid conflict. So that's what I'm really striving for in this book. So I have 15 other contributors to the book. And in fact, Frank Dux is one of the contributors to that book. And I have business people. I have other martial artists, of course. Alfred Urquidez wrote a beautiful ending statement, a final statement for it. And you may know Alfred is Apache Blackfoot. A lot of people think that the Urquidez family, Benny and the rest of the brothers, including Alfred, are Mexican, but they're not. They're they're Apache Blackfoot. And people like Jun Rhee, which is an interesting story. I did an interview for Worldwide Dojo. I have a column that I do now with Frank Dux called Legends and Legacies. And we just basically give the legendary figures in martial arts an opportunity to speak for themselves and tell us their own story, because there's as you know, especially with Frank Dux, I know you've had him on the show there.
Oh yeah. There's a lot of hearsay going on out there.
There's a lot of hearsay, and I just think that people should have an opportunity to tell their own story. So, so I had one of my first ones was with Jun Rhee, and I sent him a copy of my manuscript, the 5 Principles of Everything. So he contacted me, and he said, "I'd like to be in your book."
Wow. That makes everything easy.
Yeah, and so I said, well, thank you very much. Yeah, absolutely, no problem. And from there, I just said, well, maybe we should give other people an opportunity also. And I have now 15 other contributors, conservatives and liberals and business people and people who are experts in every walk of life and everything. It's showing how 5 things, if we focus on these 5 principles, we can succeed at anything. If you live your life strategically, you can just succeed at anything. And that's kind of, where we're going with that. And in fact, as it turns out, that book has become kind of an anchor point for a lot of other programs now. So I've been really happy with the way things have developed. But, before I get past the Panda Chronicles, Rico Rose wrote the introduction for the Shidoshi book, and then Frank Dux wrote the introduction for the Panda Chronicles. And at the time when I first met Frank Dux, I was writing for Rico Rose because he had asked me to write his life story. There was a little card. I used to go to Cal State Northridge in California here, and I was working on my master's degree at the time. And anyways, I saw a little card posted on the board, "Writer wanted." So, and a phone number, and I called up this number, right? And this guy, who just so happens to also have taken karate classes from Bob Osman, as I did. That's where my first karate instructor was, Bob Osman, 50 years ago.
Yeah, I actually watched one of your YouTube videos. It was a Message in a Bottle. You have a little series you got on your YouTube channel called Message in a Bottle, and I listened to a little bit of Bob Osman's interview.
How'd you like that?
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it very much, very much. You do also, you do things called the Bifocal Review, Message in a Bottle. You have your own little basic little shows you do on your YouTube channel.
That's true. That's true. And the beauty of the training that I got from Frank Dukes in martial arts, because I did become friends with Frank, and I actually became one of his instructors. I've been training with him ever since, and we have a lot of projects we're working on together now. But one of the things that we learned, of course, was that you never really know when something's going to be valuable. You never really know when you're going to make an impression on somebody. And you know what? Can I tell you just a side story?
Go ahead.
Okay.
We're all ears here.
I actually opened the 5 Principles of Everything with this comment, or the original manuscript is what Goju-Ryu is based on, and that's a Zen proverb that says, the universe breathes both hard and soft. Okay? Mm-hmm. So, one of my many interesting jobs, I worked for about 7 years in working with emotionally disturbed kids. And by the way, that's my next novel is going to be based on that experience. Okay. And both Rico Rose and Frank Dukes will make appearances during that novel as well. But anyways, I worked at a place called Hathaway and worked with emotionally disturbed kids. And my first day there, I walk in, and there's this kid he's about 10 years old, and he's wearing a Billy Jack hat, those black hats with the flat rims.
Oh, yeah, I know who Billy Jack is.
Okay.
Randy, you've seen that movie, right? No?
Okay.
You ain't seen Billy Jack, The Legend of Billy Jack? Okay.
Really?
I'm sorry.
Well,
yeah, everybody's seen that.
I kind of live in a bubble, man. I'm chilled.
There's 3 classic martial arts films. One of them is Bloodsport, one of them is Billy Jack, and the other is Enter the Dragon, in my opinion. But anyways, there's this kid, and he's wearing this little black hat, and he's half Indian, half white, okay? Mm-hmm. Well, the character in Billy Jack is half Indian and half white, and he wears one of these hats, all right? And in the story, of course, Billy Jack is protecting the Indian reservation kids from the evil horse killers, the ranchers. Mm-hmm. But this kid just fell in love with me because at night, we would live there for 2.5 days out of the week, and so every night I would practice martial arts, and I was working on my master's degree, and I was working on my black belt, and he would come out and peek around the corner and try to watch me, and so I'd let him come out and sit down and just talk to him and stuff. So my master's degree, I did on Carlos Castaneda's books. I don't know if you're familiar with Carlos Castaneda, The Teachings of Don Juan, and et cetera. But this was a story that was supposed to be true, again, about a guy who went to Mexico and learned from a brujo, a sorcerer there, about life. Mm-hmm. And so I had gotten in touch with many medicine men, and I was studying with some of them. Anyways, so this kid came out, and he was half Indian, half white, and I could see the Billy Jack hat, and I was encouraging him to be proud of his Indian heritage, and, they had, of course, a lot of problems with most of these kids. Well, anyways, fast forward to my time in the jail. I'm working as a teacher in the jail. I've been inside this classroom in jail for almost 20 years now. And there's a phone on the wall that rings, and it never rings, right? But it rings. I pick up this phone, and I hear this voice. He says, "Hello, sir. I don't know if you remember me, sir. I said, "Is this Bobby?" And he says, "Oh, yes, sir. I didn't see you recognize." I said, "Bobby, have you been in the service?" And he says, "Yes, sir. How did you know?" Anyways, so I said, "Stop calling me sir. And first of all, how did you find me? And what are you doing? Why are you tracking me down?" And he says, "Well, I had to tell you that he had gotten out of this home for kids. He was very proud that he had gotten his high school diploma and had joined the service and had served honorably and was discharged and had earned his black belt in the meantime. And then he had gone back to find his maternal grandfather on the reservation, the Paiute Reservation in Nevada. And his grandfather was teaching him the old ways." And he said he was, listen to this story. So he tells me that he has been in these different sweats and doing these different ceremonies, and he had a vision of me. And he said, "You were telling me the thing that changed my life."
Wow.
So I'm going, yeah, and I go, finally I said something intelligent, right? What was it?
That's good to hear, right?
Yeah. What did I say? And he said, "You told me there's more than one way to breathe." So I'm thinking it's a little bit of a letdown, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I go, I hope there's more to the story than this. And he goes, "Yeah, there is." He says he was, here these kids were. Sometimes they would just act out. They'd just go crazy, right? They start screaming and yelling. And this little 10-year-old kid is frightening the 4 adults who are, there to watch him, and they're holding him down on the floor by all of his limbs. And they're yelling at him, "Calm down, calm down,"
Mm-hmm.
So I walk into the room, and I see this scene, and I lay down, put my face on the floor right next to him, and I said, "Bobby, listen to me. Just try to, not listen to anything else except right now I want you to just try to pay attention to what I'm saying, because all I want you to do is look at how you're breathing." And he's going, of course, "Get off me, get off." And I said, "Just look how you're breathing. If you can control your breathing and slow your breathing down, you're going to feel better, and those people are going to let go of you." And he said that changed his life forever, because he calmed his breathing down and they let him go. And he said he realized at that moment that he had control of his life. And he wanted to let me know that had happened to him.
That had to be a good feeling right there.
Oh, man. Well, I asked him, of course, like a good writer would do. I said, "Can I tell this story again someday?" And he said, "Yes, absolutely." So it's in the book, The 5 Principles of Everything.
Randy, you got a couple questions for Gordon?
Well, I've just, I had, but, as far as, that's just amazing to me, some of the story. That's really cool, man, how a moment in time like that can change somebody's life forever.
Such a fleeting moment, you know what I mean? It was just a small moment like that. It has so much of an impact.
Right, and that's where the message in a bottle comes from. That whole idea is that sometimes in a minute or two, that might be our only opportunity to connect with the world, and so I give people a chance to give me their message in a bottle, like. You remember the old Pioneer missions that were sent out into the universe? These satellites were going out in all directions, and then what was his name? Carl Sagan, the actual, space scientist,
the legend, yeah.
Yeah. So Carl Sagan said, "Well, we're going to send these satellites out to take pictures of our solar system, but they're just going to keep going, right? They're like a bottle that's going out into the universe. We might as well stick a message in there." So he put these golden records on these satellites, right, which are now out in the universe, going past into other solar systems now. And he says, just in case somebody finds one of these things, what are we going to put in here? So basically what he did was he wrote a paragraph that says, like anybody would say, we were here.
Yeah.
You know? Here we were, and this is what we think, and these are things that we think are beautiful, and these are pictures of things that we think are great, and here's some sounds of things that, here's sounds that we can make, and here's how we say hello in 150 different languages and so forth, and and as it turns out, over the years, all the people that I interviewed, I've even been in the interview pool for the Dalai Lama, for instance.
Oh, wow.
Over the years, everybody basically says the same thing. I mean, and that's what the 5 principles is all about. But that's why the Message in a Bottle was created. We just want people to say, well, here it is. Sum it up for us. What's the most important thing you can say? Do it.
That you have learned in your lifetime.
Right. And it's just like that, there's only 2 ways to breathe kind of thing,
Now, I'm sorry, I interrupted you, Randy.
No, I was going to ask Gordon. I just kind of wanted to touch base a little bit on your writing process. When you're doing a collaboration, and I know you spoke earlier of you and Frank collaborating a little bit. When you guys do that, do you meet somewhere and just kind of sit down in a den somewhere and write, or do you go back and forth by email? How's that process work?
Well, I've collaborated with a few people over the years, but Frank and I generally work over the Internet. He's very, very busy. I'm pretty busy.
Oh, yes.
But,
it sounds like it.
Yeah. We usually work over the Internet. We talk on the phone a lot. I've talked to him at least 2 times today, for instance. But it really just depends. Sometimes I'll say, I'll write this section and then you add to it, or sometimes he'll say, well, here's something that I wrote, fix it up for me. We'll work in a variety of ways. And then, like with the 5 principles, of course, he wrote his own thing and I just dropped it in. As well as the rest of the 15 contributors.
And now the books that you've wrote, like the 5 Principles of Everything, Shidoshi, the Panda Chronicles. Out of all the things you've done, is there a crowning achievement? Is there something that's just your favorite?
Well, they're all different, of course, but I would have to say that the 5 Principles of Everything seems to be touching a nerve with a lot of people. One of the things I did with that book, in fact, once it was finished, we have sent an electronic copy to every member of Congress, every governor in the United States, and every member of the United Nations, and just gave it to them. And even though they probably have not all read it, or even seen it in most cases, because it's pretty difficult, by the way, to send anything to anybody in Congress. You have to go through a lot of firewalls. But we made the effort, and we sent it out for free to every single one of them, to every member of the United Nations, and it's being translated into Chinese already. It's being translated into Spanish. I've already set up distribution, so, right now it's being distributed in every English-speaking country in the world, and it's just going to snowball from there. More and more people are contacting me all the time and saying, I read the 5 Principles of Everything, and a lot of times it's surprising because I've been trying to get in touch with people, for the new magazine, for instance, and I think they're calling me about that, and come to find out that they have read the book. So that's been a great achievement for me. I've just been happy that after all these years I finally have been able to get that thing put together and out. But I have to say the same thing about Shidoshi and the same thing about the Panda Chronicles, because all of these books really all started about 30 years ago, and if it wasn't for some of the side roads that we have all been forced to go down, we probably would have done a lot more sooner.
Mm-hmm. Well, like in the 5 principles of everything, let's talk about the term conflict avoidance a little bit.
Okay.
Hey, and guys, I don't mean to interrupt you, Gordon. I just want to let you know we only got like 4 minutes left, so
Oof.
I want to make sure I don't want you to run out of time, so just giving you a heads up.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Well, you want me to just answer that question, or you have conflict avoidance is not conflict resolution necessarily, but it's trying to determine. So, for instance, I give the example of being a lifeguard. A lifeguard doesn't say, I'm a good lifeguard because I pulled 25 people out of the water today who were drowning. A good lifeguard says, nobody had any accidents at my pool today.
Oh, okay.
Okay? Nobody drowned because nobody had any problems. That's conflict avoidance. That's what we're striving for in life. All politicians could look to conflict avoidance and the 5 principles and see that they can solve problems before they occur if they understand what the principle of awareness, the principle of flow, the principle of form, the principle of benefit, and the principle of harmony, they all work together.
Mm.
You can't just say, well, what do I want to do in life? I want to make money. Well, you can't do that. If you try to say that, then you are headed for nothing but conflict because your goal is not a noble one. If you want to make money and help people, and if you want to make money and make sure that you don't hurt anyone else, that's conflict avoidance.
Always hard to make money. You got to do something you love to do.
There you go. That would be one of the ways to know that you are following the 5 principles. See?
And as long as you're doing something you love to do, you're rich in life anyway.
That's right.
That's how I feel. Hey, well, Gordon, like I said, we're about out of time. We got a couple minutes left. I want to give you the opportunity to tell everybody where they can go, maybe to get your novels, to buy your novels and stuff like that.
Okay. Well, you can, of course, just Google my name, Gordon Richiusa, and it's Rich I, United States of America, RICHIUSA. But better yet, go to Legends and Legacies magazine, legends.legacies.com, or legends-legacies.com, legends-legacies.com, and all of my books and everybody else's work, and Frank is the editor at large, I'm the editor, and Dana Stamos is the managing editor, but we have also entertainment editor, music editor, and, of course, my wife, Barbara Rich, the Bifocals review editor. So there's lots of people who are contributing to this. And Linda Lee, the photographer, photo editor. So,
and I also read your...
There you
go. Ahead, I'm sorry. I was just going to plug your wife for you because I also heard she was an author, too, and she had a book out called The Gradual Diet. Right?
She does, and it's and she's a contributor to the 5 Principles book too.
Okay.
So anybody looking to diet and find out a good way to diet, you could get that book, and you could make that a lifestyle change instead of make it torture. Gradual diet's a great concept, by the way.
I just want to get you some brownie points, Gordon.
Thank you.
Well, Gordon, thank you for being on our program, and we hope one day you'll come back again. We really enjoyed you. Randy, you got 20 seconds. You want to say goodbye to Gordon?
Gordon, it was a pleasure to meet you, sir.
Well, it's my pleasure as well.
All right. This has been the 25th Hour Radio Show. Join us Sunday at 4 p.m. We have the band Groove Tang Dynasty. Until then, I'm Rob Fairless, and for Randy Ashby, we will talk to you later. Gordon, thanks again.
My pleasure. I can't wait to see this hooked up. I'll drop it in all my websites.
Oh, thank you very much. I'll have it up on YouTube soon.
Thanks a lot, Rob.
All right.
All right. Thanks, Randy.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye, Gordon.
25th Hour Radio Show.